Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the patch notes for 13.1. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. I am going to be doing a tier list for each role, and I'm going to try to release that one per day, and I'm going to try to make them shorter. I know I've been saying that for years, but like maybe 15 to 30 minutes each. And I'm going to try to do each role, each patch as these come out. And I would like to try to do a video per day. I don't know if I can guarantee that with my schedule, but I'd like to be back to consistency and getting you guys some interesting content. But I can at least do the tier lists for you as well. So stay tuned. I am going to, get back to doing more content. Okay. So 13.1B is a really weird number, but the reason why they're doing that, if you haven't heard, is they were hacked to some extent. I don't know what all happened with that, but they can't officially do 13.2. But this looks like almost everything they were promising from 13.2, as far as I know. Maybe there was a champion rework or something that was supposed to come in, but it is very significant. There are a lot of changes coming in on this patch that should shake up the meta a pretty good amount. So I think it's a good patch. I think most people will probably think this is a good patch. A lot of people, from what I've heard, have been complaining, why wasn't this done earlier? This is such a huge patch. Why didn't you do something like this in the preseason? But, I'm kind of the more positive, better late than never kind of persuasion. So I'm just glad they're shaking it up a little bit here. Okay, so what's going on in this patch? All right, they're nerfing Gangplank a little bit. Bonus damage from critical strikes down a little bit. I don't think Gangplank is too over the top in solo queue. This is mostly for pro play. I think he's an interesting champion when he's viable. High skill cap, lots of interesting counterplay from himself and other people. So I think this is fine. If they want to tap him a little bit, I think he'll still probably be okay. They are making some other changes that could be interesting on him. I'm not sure of a lot of his current builds, but something like Essence Reaver's getting buffed. Navori Quick Blades is getting buffed. I don't know if you would get that on him. Infinity Edge is getting buffed, so you can buy it second item. So I think there will be several options for Crit Plank that might sort of make up for some of these minor nerfs. Okay, Heimerdinger. I don't think Heimer is over the top. This is for support Dinger, probably in pro play. Yeah, it says it right there. I think he's a really interesting champ. He's got really good push. He's got good poke. There's a pretty decent amount of skill expression to him. So, and he's just an interesting, weird support that isn't usually in the meta. So I like those types of supports being around just to shake it up. So it's not always Braum and Tom, like it was for 5 years straight or something. So I'm kind of sad to see him nerfed, but I don't know his win rates in pro. Maybe he really just is that oppressive. But they're making his turrets easier to kill early on, so they're taking off 45 HP early and 60 later. And then the micro rockets are doing 10 less damage at all ranks, but they have higher AP scaling. So I guess once you get your first item, that basically nullifies that difference pretty much if you're going for an AP item first. So these seem fairly minor to me. I think he'll still be pretty good. You can poke down these turrets from longer range and kill them with, something like Caitlyn, obviously, but things like Jhin. There are several champions that can deal with it pretty well. So I think he'll still be alright. Okay, Kassadin, they're increasing the cooldown on his E. I mean, really, when you're going all in to kill somebody, you're only going to be casting this once anyways, right? I mean, even at 13 seconds with a lot of CDR, the E is not coming up a lot. Like, the problem is R, right? It's the R at level 16 being on like a 2-second cooldown. That's the big issue, because that R by itself, when you get it charged up and you've got like 4 items, that will just one-shot people by itself. Just about. So the E cooldown is like one of his least impactful abilities, I think. I don't think it gets lower cooldown. When people cast spells, that might lower the cooldown a little bit. I can't remember. But he's still going to be really strong, I think. With the Seraphs and Rod buffs on the last patch, Um, he should still be a pretty good champion. Now, again, it does require him to scale. You have to have the right kind of comp. But he is very good against mages, and I think a lot of mages are going to be pretty strong on this patch, especially with the Seraph's Rod buffs. You'll see more like Anivia's, Cassiopeia's, things like that. And he's pretty good into those champs, I think. So, I think he'll still be pretty good in the right kind of situations. Kindred, I don't know. Is this pro? Because, I never see this champion. It's very rare to see this champion. But they're hitting her with 10 damage across the board. Okay. Maybe they're thinking with, the crit builds and stuff. She could be stronger, like Infinity Second or maybe Navori. I'm not really sure what the adjustments here. Preemptive nerf. So they don't even want to see her at all played. She's already super niche. And there's a lot of counterplay to her in solo queue. If you just keep her off of those marks for a while, you know where she's going to be when you see those marks. So, I don't like it. I think she's an interesting champion. It's very unique. So, I'd wish they'd just kind of wait and see. Because, I don't think she's going to be too far over the top. Lilia, is she bad right now? I thought she was actually pretty good. Maybe she got nerfed last patch and she's worse than I think. But they're buffing her a little bit. Okay, so giving her a bit more AP scaling. That's probably not that big of a deal. Yeah, just AP ratio. So she'll be a little bit stronger later. I think that's fine. Slightly lower cooldown. They are nerfing Demonic a little bit for melees. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But, okay, good. I think she's a fairly interesting champion with interesting gameplay. Fairly unique champion. So, I like to see a little bit more of her in the meta. Lucian. I don't know. I know he's picked. I haven't watched all kinds of pro, but I know that, Lucian Nami is a premier bot lane. But I see a lot of bad Lucians in solo queue. Obviously, this is for pro. But, this seems pretty minor to me. Basically, they're nerfing the early game mana. So, and it's 30 mana early on. By rank 5, you're only losing 15 mana. So it's really just for levels 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. If you use your entire mana bar, right, you're going to have one less spell you can cast or something. So maybe that matters. I don't think it's going to be a big difference. I think he's still going to be good in cases where he's good. And I think that some of these changes could actually be quite strong for him. Now, will it be stronger for different ADCs? Possibly. But, this could open up a better crit Lucian build if he wants to go Gale Force into Infinity Edge, or Essence Reaver has historically been pretty powerful on him. Essence into Infinity or Essence into Navori. All of those could be options for him. You almost certainly want Gale Force early for the extra burst and the extra mobility, or maybe Kraken against tanks. But I think he's going to have a lot more options. The crit builds will probably be really good on him. So, we'll see. I think he's probably fine. That is a pretty obnoxious lane, though, even in solo queue. Maokai, okay, yeah, he's just way too strong in the jungle. So, I don't know if he gets bonus damage to monsters off of anything in his kit. I don't think he does. But that would be something you could nerf to take him out of the jungle. Or they could just make his Q do, less damage to monsters. I wish they would do that rather than nerfing flat numbers on him, because I think he's fine as a support. I think he's viable and, pretty good, but not OP as, a support or a top lane. So I wish they would just nerf some specific interactions in the jungle rather than nerfing his overall kit. But, okay, so 20 less damage on the Q. Pretty big deal because it doesn't have any fall off when it hits multiple targets. So, that's quite a bit less damage. And then the sapling toss, has a little bit less AP scaling. The empowered version has less AP scaling, but it still has really high base damage. I think that with the saplings, they should make them last way, way less time. Like, I think that these things can stay up for almost a minute, and it only has a 10-second cooldown. Is pretty ridiculous. I would either lower the time to something like 30 seconds on them, maybe even 20 seconds on them, or make the cooldown longer early and then scale it down. So maybe like something like 18 seconds on a sapling, and then if you actually put points into it, then it scales down to 10, right? So that would make you commit to the AP build with saplings if that's what you want to do. So I would like something like that, where the saplings are way worse if you want to go for kind of a tanky build. So yeah, I would do something like that with the saplings rather than the AP scaling. I don't think the AP scaling is particularly a big deal. So will he still be good? Yeah, he still has all of his CC. He'll probably still be able to clear. They are nerfing Demonic a little bit, but I think he does have other options. So I think he'll still be pretty good. Okay, Nami. I think she's fine. Like, yes, with Lucian, she's a little over the top. But I don't know. It's difficult because there's such a unique combo. They have unique abilities, unique interactions between themselves. And she gets items that other people don't typically get. So Mandate, for example. Almost nobody else gets Mandate right now, but it's particularly strong on Nami because the interaction with her E. So it's just hard to nerf items or runes to affect her, so I guess you have to nerf her directly. This is fine. So they're nerfing her damage just a flat amount early on by 10, but they're giving her a better AP ratio. You're not going to get a ton of AP, but it will help. So yeah, it's just nerfing her early pressure a little bit. I guess that's okay. Orianna, just, that's basically the same thing. And then when you hit an entire wave, you'll do a little bit more damage to the, 4th, 5th, and 6th enemy that you hit. But interestingly, if you only hit 2 enemies, then this is doing a lot less damage. So it would be 100% to the first target, and then 90% to the second target. Now it's going to do 100% to the first target and 70% to the second target. So that's actually a nerf in like small skirmishes when you're hitting champions. Command Dissonance, less mana, that's good. I mean, it's ridiculous that a normal ability in 2023 costs 110 mana, right? Like, that's stupid. So I'm glad they're nerfing that down. They should maybe even take that down a little bit more. I mean, they don't want her to be too strong of a lane bully, but I think it'd be fine to go 60 scaling to 80, honestly. But, and then they're giving her 50 more damage early and 100 more damage late. So that's good. And a 0.9 ratio. I think that's really solid. It just, like, she's an interesting champion. High skill cap, good utility, enables lots of interesting comps when she's viable in pro play and solo queue. So I like it when she's in the meta. I think Orianna metas are cool. But she just doesn't do enough damage to keep up with a lot of the modern day champions. So I like how they're giving her sort of more all-in, but they're not making her poke too overwhelming early on. So, good job. I like that. Rise, I really haven't seen him popping off in solo queue. I assume he's probably doing well in pro with the changes to Seraphs and Rod. So they're just nerfing his scaling on mana a little bit. That's fine. Udyr, obnoxious champion. I'm glad they're hitting him fairly hard. I just don't think Udyr's interesting. I mean, he just literally just run up, like, no skill shots, like, almost literally no skill shots, and just auto-attacks people. And, I mean, he's like Garen-esque. I think, like, those types of champs should be viable in, like, maybe lower-level play. But when they're really popping off in, like, Platinum Plus, or definitely when you're seeing them played in, like, Pro or Challenger or whatever, I think they're just too strong. Because there's just not a lot of counterplay to that. It's like they're just going to run up and do whatever they're going to do. I mean, you can peel him, I guess, but I think he was probably a little over the top, so I'm glad to see him nerfed. Okay, Yumi, they're just nerfing the hell out of this champion, and I think that I think this is going to be the nail in the coffin. I don't think anyone's going to be able to play Yumi. And it's just so dumb. Like, I don't like her. Nobody likes her. Everybody is annoyed by Yumi. It's just a fail. It's one of the biggest, like, champion creation fails of all time. And it's so easily fixable, and they just won't do it. Everybody knows what's the problem with Yumi. Permanent attachment, cannot interact with her. Everybody knows that. Everybody's known that for years. But Riot just refuses to acknowledge it, and they just say, that's what makes her unique. We want that. We want her to be permanently attached. It's a bad idea. It ruins the champion. So what happens when you have permanent attachment? That is so strong that you have to literally nerf everything about her to the point where she's never going to get played. So you're basically deleting the champion because you have too much pride to admit it's a bad design and you should change it. I think she could be an interesting champion if her attachment is temporary. Right? So something kind of like Yasuo, where you can attach to somebody temporarily for like 5 seconds or something, but you can't reattach to them unless certain conditions are met. Right? Whatever that is. Maybe you have to attach to somebody else first. Maybe it's a certain length of time, 10 or 15 seconds. Maybe it resets on a kill or an assist. But just something where you're a normal champion that has to buy boots, that has reasonable abilities, with reasonable damage, reasonable mana costs. You just rework her kit to turn her into a normal support that can temporarily attach to people. And then I think it's cool. Then you have the ability to kind of speed them up temporarily, to dodge skill shots temporarily if you attach, to kind of jump over walls and have somebody help you out to escape things. So I think there's a lot of interesting, cat and mouse, type of play with Yumi, and sort of just tricky jumping around to different people that could be really fun, that could be really interactive. But the fact that she permanently attaches, just completely kills her, right? It makes her so boring, so uninteresting for most people to watch and most people to play. And I know they want to make her an easy champion or whatever, but you could still have the attachment, the cat and mouse thing, and it wouldn't be like that hard to do it. And it would be a lot more fun for people. And there's already fairly easy champions out there. People can play Sona. They can play Soraka. Like, there are a lot of very sort of passive, hang out in the back, and just support types of champions. You don't have to have something as extreme as Yumi, where someone could attach to someone who's, super fed and almost literally go AFK, like go grab a sandwich or something, away from their keyboard, and still have a high impact on the game, just from the stats you're giving them. So, really bad design. And they just decided, you know what, we're just going to take her out of the game. So they're taking her attack range down to 425. That's basically it. Like, that's so short. You're almost never going to be able to trade with somebody, especially at high levels. And you need to be able to trade early because her passive is predicated on trading, right? You're supposed to go up in auto so you get your shield. And you get your mana back. You run out of mana really fast if you don't auto. Base attack damage is down by 6. That is a lot early on. Base health is down by 50. It's an insane amount early on. She's already super squishy. And base health regen is down. Bop and block, you gain 25 range whenever your passive is active. Okay, so now you're, at 450 range. So you're still outranged by pretty much every ADC. And your shield is just getting whacked. It's 15 early and 80 off later. They are nerfing the scaling on you and me by a ton. Instead of 12 to 20% of your bonus adaptive stats, it's now 6 to 10. So it's cut in half. It's insane nerf. And then Zoomies doesn't scale anymore. So it's just a flat 20%. So what is that? Like 9 nerfs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like 8 nerfs or something. And she just got nerfed last patch too. So yeah, she's just gone. I just don't think she's viable. And it's sad, again, because I know people would like her because she's cute. People like cats. People like little cute things. Um, but it's just a shame they're just too proud to admit they fucked up. Pardon the language, and they just don't fix it by starting with temporary attachment and buffing everything else back to a reasonable state. So hopefully they figure it out. Maybe in another couple of years they'll figure it out. Maybe they'll actually read a post by any content creator ever who understands that's the problem with Yumi. Okay. Zoe, so now she is getting a ton of free spell pen whenever someone gets bubbled. So now they are really going to feel it if they get bubbled. It's going to be one-shot city a lot earlier. And I think that's probably fine. I mean, the bubble's on a pretty long cooldown, and that's kind of all she has, right? If she bubbles, she needs to be able to kill people. The poke is a lot less valuable than it used to be with the Q because there's just so much lifesteal in the game. They are nerfing some of that too. But I think this is probably a good change. I know a lot of people hate Zoe, but there is some interesting, counterplay and stuff like that out there to her potentially. And she's very easy to gank and kill with her R. So yeah, she's not the most riveting champion in the game, but I think she's a lot more interesting than, maybe a third of the other champions out there. So I think it's cool to have Zoe in the game. Now, will this be OP? We'll see. That's a pretty powerful one-shot potential there. Okay, fighter item adjustments. Thank God. I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I am sick and tired of fighters being OP for like 2 years, 3 years, however the hell long it's been, ever since they did the mythic item, and really ever since they brought Conquer into the game. These champions are just over the top. Like, the problem that they have is they forgot that balancing requires tactical weaknesses. Something needs to not be good against something else. That's what makes a strategy game interesting. If there's something that's good against everything, it's not interesting. It's just overpowered, and everybody has to play those types of champs, right? And fighters just violate these rules, right? If you think about the traditional sort of counterplay in League of Legends, right? Historically, you have ADCs, really powerful, long range, auto-attacking champions that require good positioning and consistent damage, and it's really high. It's the highest sustained damage in the game, but historically, they're immobile and they're very squishy. So they require protection. They require very careful positioning. Think about tanks. Okay, tanks, historically, very difficult to kill, have a lot of CC, but their damage is really low. So they're going to lose to sustained damage champions like ADCs if they can't tie them up. That's how they're balanced. Assassins, high mobility, really high burst damage, low sustained damage, but they can kill those ADCs. So you've got assassins are kind of the counter to ADCs, tanks are kind of the counter to assassins, and ADCs are kind of the counter to tanks. That's like the holy trinity of balance historically with League of Legends. Then you have these kind of intermediaries, right? So mages do magic damage, usually high burst damage, and they do a lot up front. So historically their abilities do a lot of damage, but most of them do lower sustained damage over time than ADCs. That's kind of how they fit in as an intermediary. And then you have fighters. So where are these fighters, bruisers, whatever the hell you want to call them, types of champions, are usually, pretty good to above average at a lot of things, but they shouldn't be the best at a lot of stuff. So usually they are not as mobile as assassins, but they're more mobile than ADCs. They do pretty good sustained damage, but they have to be able to stick to targets, and historically they can be peeled, right? So less sustained damage than ADCs, but a little bit more mobility. They should be tankier than most mages or ADCs, but they should not be as tanky as actual tanks. So historically, they're pretty good against assassins, pretty good against tanks, but should probably get beaten by mages and ADCs. But the problem is that with all of these items, there's virtually no weaknesses to fighters / bruisers. They have high mobility, Um, so about as much mobility as many assassins do. They are just as tanky as a lot of tanks out there, primarily through different forms of shielding and life steals and resets and all that kind of stuff. Extra free stats. And then they do just as much burst damage or more sometimes than assassins do, and just as much sustained damage or more than ADCs do. So it's like, where the hell's the weakness in something like an Irelia with 3 of these items, or an Aatrox with 3 of these, goofy items that have been floating around for a long time? So I just really hate it. I think a lot of other people do too. It's just very frustrating to play against these champs when they're too much over the top, and they've been too far over the top for quite a while. They understand that. They keep saying they want counterplay, and they'll nerf some fighter items, but then they always end up buffing other items that fit into their wheelhouse as well. So let's see what they're doing this time. So first up, they have Omnivamp. I'm really glad they're getting rid of a lot of this free sustain. Sustain is just so toxic in the game when it's free, because it just makes trades invalid in lane. Like, that takes out a lot of champs. There are several champs in the game that are really, they have to dominate early, they have to get good trades, and they have to stay ahead, or they're just going to get outscaled and lose. So when these fighters can just kind of sustain through all of their poke, they're just going to win late game by default, because they can't get pressured enough, because they get free sustain on so many items. And they're not giving up any late game scaling, because these... The hell? Okay, sorry. Alexa's just saying random stuff. So that's why the Vamp is bad. And then usually in team fights or later on, they do so much damage. It's just so hard to kill them through all of this sustain, even if you have Grievous Wounds in its current iteration. So it gives you a free laning phase, and it's incredibly OP defensively, especially stuff like Death's Dance later on. And you're not giving up any offense in order to get the free pass in lane and the free defense later. So super toxic. They should cut down a lot of the healing, or at least make it a strategic choice. If you get healing, you will deal less damage, or you will be a lot squishier, or you will lose mobility. It needs to be some kind of choice. Sustain is very, very good in these games, so it should not be free. Okay, so they're getting rid of Omnivamp on Eclipse. Thank God. They're adding ability haste. Okay, cool. Now people can cast more abilities, and they're lowering the cooldown on the shield. So you can get your shield up a little bit more. You can find strategic moments to go in, try to take a good trade, but you're going to have moments of vulnerability. You're going to be vulnerable for 12 seconds after you go for one of those trades. So still good, but it's not free, right? You have to be a lot more tactical with this. So I like this change. If played correctly, this could be even stronger than Omnivamp, but it's a lot harder to execute. You have to really play around those windows a bit more. So I like that. Gore Drinker, less ability haste, more health. I guess. I mean, for ability haste, I would say health is probably stronger in a lot of cases. So I'm not necessarily sure that that's a nerf, but okay. I think Gore Drinker's fine right now anyways. I don't think you necessarily need to nerf it a ton. Okay, getting rid of Omnivamp, adding in Lifesteal. This is great, because there are several abilities out there that do magic damage or true damage. Remember that Omnivamp also applies to true damage. And now it's not going to do as much. Now, a lot of these champs also do a lot of physical damage, and Lifesteal is going to apply to that. But it only applies to abilities that would normally trigger Lifesteal. And so that's not every ability out there, right? Lifesteal, I believe, is only on auto attacks or on abilities that specifically say they work with Lifesteal. So that's going to make it weaker on a lot of champions out there. It gets a little bit more ability haste. However, the cleave damage from Ravenous Hydra itself will apply Lifesteal. So you're still getting like pretty good wave clear, pretty good lifesteal. I think it's still going to be an OP item on a lot of champions, but it's just not quite as ridiculous in specific scenarios Maw Malmortius, again, Omnivamp to Lifesteal. I think that's a much healthier stat. It's getting more AD, so you're doing more damage, but you're losing the ability haste on it. So, overall, I think it's pretty good, but now you're making strategic choices. You're not just getting free ability haste on everything. Death Stance. Okay, this is one of the biggest offenders. This item is just ridiculous as a second or third item. It's just too much offense combined with too much defense. Okay, so they're giving it more offense. Alright, they're giving it 10 AD. They're giving it 5 extra armor. No ability haste on it, though. So this is strictly survivability. And then on takedowns, you're only healing for 50% bonus AD instead of 120. Now, you still heal for your entire bleed stack that's on you, which is still incredibly powerful, and that's where most of the healing comes from. But they are cutting your healing a little bit here. This is about neutral, though. 10 extra AD is a lot. That's like 360 gold worth of extra stats. This is an extra 100. So you're looking at like 450-ish, maybe a little bit more. Extra gold value here. You're losing 15 ability haste, which is about 375. So it's close. It's close. I think it'll still be good, but like marginally nerfed. Now they are making Grievous Wounds a lot stronger though, so that's also going to help with some of this healing. But okay, decent change. I probably would have hit the amount of bleed damage that you get to take off, or the amount of damage that converts over to bleed. I would have lowered that, but I'm glad they're doing something to it. Okay, buffing up Cleaver. I think that's fine. It's been an item that virtually nobody gets. It just gets outcompeted by Death's Dance and Ravenous Hydra as like second and third items. So I like that they're trying to make it a viable choice for, you know, champions that want to offer that extra utility, that extra armor shred for their team. Okay. So Grievous Wounds, they're basically buffing it. Pretty much, or they're making it easier. So it's going to be a lot more rare for someone to actually complete these items. I think that most people are just going to sit on the component and just not complete it until you already have all the rest of your items done. So Oblivion Orb, you're losing 5 ability power on it, but you're going from 25% Grievous all the way up to 40, which is really good. I think that's what it used to be, right? Before they nerfed it most recently, it used to go from 40 to 60. But they're giving you the full 40 off of just the 800 gold item. And that's what they're doing with all of these items. They're just giving it flat out 40% on all of the Grievous Wound items. So I think a lot of people are just going to sit on it. And I think that's good that you can just pick that up and just like hard counter, you know, a lot of the nonsense out there. The Ravenous, the Death's Dance, all of that. 40% for only 800 mana is really good. And it still is like, doesn't cost that much to do it, right? Like, this is 800 gold total, and you're getting 30 ability power, which is like 660 gold worth of stats-ish. So really, you're paying 140 gold for 40% Grievous Wounds. That's a very, very good bargain in a lot of situations, especially for supports where you're balling on a budget. Now you can get this pretty comfortably and just sit on it for a while. Now, Putrefier, I don't know what the heck they're thinking here. This is trash. This is a really, really bad proposition. So they're taking away 20 ability power. That is a lot. That's like 440 gold worth of ability power. And 5 ability haste. That's like 135 gold there. So you're looking at like losing 600 gold value worth of stats on a 2,300 gold value item. That's over 25% of the item's value is lost. And you're adding 8% healing and shielding. That's like 35 gold each. So I guess, okay, so 600 lost, and you're gaining, what, like 255 or something gold. But this isn't even that good on a lot of AP, you know, type of champs. I don't know. I think it's really bad. Either way, like, you're going to be losing somewhere in the neighborhood, just hundreds and hundreds of gold value here. And it doesn't give you any extra Grievous. It's still 40%. So it's not even wounds. It's just a pretty bad value proposition, I think. Because, yeah, you're paying 1,600 gold, effectively. You're gaining 10 ability power. So that's what, 350 or 10 ability power is like 220 gold. You're gaining 15 ability haste, which is like 300. Let me just put this up here. Okay, so ability haste about 27 gold each. So you're gaining 405 gold there. You're gaining 10 ability power. Right? So you're gaining, it's like 22 or 220. So that right there is 625 gold so far for 1,600 gold to upgrade this. Or, yeah, 1,700 gold. It's 2,500 gold item. Oh no, they're making it. What? They're making it 2,300. I think it's 2,300 gold. So 1,500 gold, and then you are getting 8 healing and shielding. So 625. That's 35 times 8. That's 280 plus 625. So you're getting 905 gold worth of stats. You're paying 1,500 gold for 905 gold worth of stats with no other bonuses. That's it. You're just basically setting fire to 600 gold. Like, it's literally doing nothing for you. Like, literally nothing. That is so bad. Like, who the hell designed this? Like, what? It's so bad. It's baffling. Is this a misprint? Who the hell would buy that? It's so bad. That is profoundly bad. Because you're not even gaining anything else. It's 40% Grievous wounds on any damage. It's not 60. It's still 40. This is 40 at Oblivion Orb. The same activation parameters do damage to somebody. This is the exact same thing. Who the hell do they have doing math on this stuff? Like, it's literally no benefit. You are losing 600 gold straight up by completing this item. Mind-blowing just how bad of a proposition that is. Now, if you want to go for Morello, I think it's 2,500 gold. You're losing 100 gold, or 100 health, but you're gaining 10 magic pen. Magic pen is very rare, flat pen. I think it's usually valued at about 35 gold, I believe, each. I don't remember what the money is on Sork. But I think that's a good proposition. Like, 100 health is 2.66 each. So you're losing about 260 gold here, and you're gaining about 350. I think that's probably worth in a lot of situations. Barely. Barely worth. But at least you're not losing 600 gold. So I think anybody that would get this historically Putrefier, just get Morello. It's just better. Like, you're not going to get the ability haste, but at least you're getting, like, real AP. I think it's, like, 80 AP or something. At least you're not losing 600 gold. You're getting something. You're getting health off of it, and you're getting AP off of it. You don't have the ability haste, but whatever. At least it's a better value proposition. So just never, ever, ever get this item. Ever. Ever. In its current proposition. There is no situation where you should get this item instead of getting Morellonomicon. They both activate the exact same way now. You just do damage. They don't have to be below 50% anymore. It's just literally do magic damage, 40% debuff. Same thing on both of them. It's just this one you set fire to 600 gold. This one you don't. So just get Morellonomicon. Just delete this item from the game. This is such a noob trap. I don't know if I've seen a bigger noob trap item than this. Most noob trap items, it's like maybe 70% efficient or something. But you're getting something out of completing it. You're at least getting some weird little passive that people think is really valuable, but is not, like the old like Navori quick blades or something. But this is just straight up horrible to finish. Like I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Where completing an item is exceptionally, profoundly worse than just having the component. Like, literally just combining them is a horrible idea. I don't know that I've ever seen that. Without some kind of gray area. Again, some kind of weird little passive or something else that people are just overvaluing. It's just straight up the stats are just worse. It's mind-blowing how you even get to that. Unless, I mean, maybe I'm missing something. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing something there, but it's looking absurdly bad. Okay, Executioners. You lose 5 AD, but you get the Grievous. Kim Punk Chainsword, you're losing 5 AD, but you're getting the Grievous. So that's a lower proposition. I don't know if that's even worth building either at that point. Mortal Reminder, attack speed is down, but you get 30% armor pen. I think that's a lot better in most cases, certainly for caster ADCs, your Jins, your Samiras, stuff like that. That's actually a pretty good upgrade. You lose the movement speed. So I'm not sure about that. I think most people are probably just going to sit on Executioners. Lord Dom's extra AD. I think that's good. Bramble Vest. That's pretty nice. I think in a lot of matchups, this is good to begin with. And Thornmail, you don't have to CC them anymore. You just have to take damage, and you get the 40% debuff. So I think sitting on Bramble could be pretty good again. Keep in mind, this does help you marginally with wave clear too. If you get a wave alone and all the little minions start attacking you, this does offer you a little bit of wave clear. Not as good as something like a Sunfire Cape, but it does have like some decent utility. Or like in the jungle, I think this is usually like a top laner, like your versus Fiora or something matchup. I'm not sure, but anyways, okay. ADC class adjustments, Infinity Edge. This is massive. This is one of the biggest things on this patch. You can build Infinity Edge second item. All you need is 40% crit to activate this. I think that means you could get it first item, I believe, on something like Yasuo and Yone. I'm not sure if you'd want to do that, but you could activate it as first item, in theory. So this is going to be particularly good on champions that don't need a lot of attack speed. I think those champs are already really good, and I think they're going to get better. So champs that just want to skip the Phantom Dancer, skip the Rapid Fire Cannon, and just go for big AD with big crits. They have abilities that crit, or really good modifiers on their crit. I think those are going to be the big winners on this patch. So, for example, immediately I'm thinking about Jhin, Xayah, Samira, just stuff that has big crits. Maybe Draven, right? Because he just wants a lot of AD and he just wants to crit in one shot with his axes. A lot of attack speed is not necessarily great on Draven because you want to be able to catch your spinning axes, and if you're throwing attacks too fast, you're not going to be able to catch your spinning axes and move on. So I think that item's going to be really, really good on a lot of those champs. So ability champs that scale with crit. Sivir, another one that could be potentially pretty good. So I think this is a big deal. This is some big game, hardcore snowballing potential on that item. Now, Navori Quick Blades, you can get this also and activate the cooldown reduction at 2 items. So how many champs would want this? Go like Gale Force into Quick Blades? Maybe something like Xayah. Obviously, Tryndamere likes Quick Blades. I'm not sure. I don't think this one's going to be as common as Infinity Edge as like a second item. This change really only matters if it's second item with crit builds. But they're buffing Essence Reaver as well. So people are going to be able to choose between Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, and Quick Blades. And I think that Essence Reaver as like a second item, I think that Essence Reaver or Infinity Edge is going to win that battle on most champions. So yeah, maybe Quick Blades in some situations, but I don't think we're going to see a ton of that on ADCs. Maybe something like Xayah, but I doubt it because she's going to like the Essence Reaver a lot, and you really need to get your mythic like first or second item. I think Gale Force is incredibly powerful on those champs too because it has really high burst damage, just like crazy damage off of that dash. And then of course you have the extra movement, which is huge for repositioning for your abilities, dodging skill shots. Gale Force is just amazing on a lot of like your Jins, your Xayahs, your Samiras, all of that. I guess you don't usually get it on Samira, but it's really good on a lot of these caster champs. So this is interesting, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of it. Bloodthirster, lifesteal is down a little bit, but it is getting a much bigger shield at later levels. Even at early levels, a 180 shield instead of a 50, and then it's 200 less gold. Not a lot of champs are going to want Bloodthirster. There's some. Maybe Samira is a common one where you go Shield Bow Bloodthirster. So it's possible, but this will make it a little bit more appealing as a second or third item, or like a third or a fourth item, I should say, on many champs. But just keep in mind, Grievous Wounds is way cheaper and it's going to be everywhere. Right? Because there's still going to be a lot of those healing, BS champions that are going to be getting, Ravenous Hydra plus Death's Dance, Blade of the Ruined King, all that kind of stuff is still going to be very popular. So a lot of people are going to have Grievous Wounds just naturally in their builds to combat other champs, and you're going to take collateral damage from that if you build Bloodthirster. So I think you might be over-indexed toward healing on many champs. So I don't think you're going to see this a lot, but it could be out there. It could be helpful, especially if the rest of your team doesn't have a lot of healing. If the enemy's not going to get Grievous, this might be a decent choice. Okay, Ashe getting a little more mana, probably not going to matter that much. Caitlyn, Ezreal, Jin's Deadly Flourish is doing a little bit more damage, or the mana cost is down at later levels. Okay, you don't max this first, so it's probably not that big of a deal, but okay. And then Captive Audience, is down. Again, that's like the last thing that you max, so I don't think that really matters too much on Jhin. I do think the other changes are very good on it. I think the Infinity Edge second is massive. He does not want to get an attack speed item. Rapid Fire is cute, but you really rather just clap him with Infinity Edge, I think. Just Gale Force into Infinity Edge, you're going to be smoking some people. Jinx, little bit better mana cost. Okay, you're not maxing Zap first, you're maxing your Q first. Zap, I believe, is second. So, not a big deal. It's not going to be... You're not going to get any benefit off of this until you start getting into, levels 8, levels 10, when you start getting multiple points in your W. So, it's okay. I don't think it's going to move the needle. Mana regen on Kaisa, whatever. Misfortune, whatever. Senna, whatever. Sivir mana matters a lot. Ricochet is your second one a lot of times, but she uses it a lot. It's a big part of her wave clear, so taking that down to 60 is pretty huge, especially with the buff to Essence Reaver. That could be very good on Sivir. So we'll see, but historically, if Sivir is able to actually use all of her abilities and not go then she's historically a pretty strong champ. And then Twitch, I mean, she would love to go like Essence Reaver into Infinity Edge, but I think that might be a little too cute to not get a mythic until third item. It's probably going a little too far. But she does have some good options. Navori looks cool on her, but again, you're probably going to want Essence instead there. And Infinity Edge. Okay, Twitch, whatever. Xayah, whatever. A little bit extra mana regen. Blade of the Ruined King. Some people are calling this a buff. I'm not so sure. I guess on ranged champions, you're getting an extra 1% on hit damage. The cooldown on the passive activation is much higher. It's a lot less like burst magic damage off of that proc, but again, that's only happening every 30 seconds now, so most of the damage is on the on hit. So a little bit weaker on something like Irelia, I guess. A little bit better on range champs. But crit is going to be so strong on this patch with all the buffs, especially to Infinity Edge. I just don't think you can get Blade anymore if champs can get crit instead of like Twitch. I know people are talking about Blader and King on Twitch. I don't think so, man. I think you just go whatever Infinity Edge second on Twitch. Maybe that's a little too ambitious, but Twitch is really good with crit also, and crit's really good on this patch. So I don't know. I don't think on hit's the way to go for a lot of ranged champions right now, but maybe. Okay, Demonic Embrace is doing a little bit less damage for melee champs, so going from 1.8 per tick down to 1.6, but for ranged champs, it's going 1%. So that's going to be good on like your Brands, your Zyras that maybe like to get this, Dinger, stuff like that. It's going to make it a little bit more appealing, but then of course it's going to be worse on your tanky champs that want it. I think that's probably fine. Essence Reaver, 10 extra AD. That's a lot. That's like 360 gold worth of AD for 100 gold more value. So that's quite good. That's a big, hefty hitting item. So yeah, very good, especially on champs that want maybe a mana type of item first. Essence Reaver can be good. Now it is competing at second item with Infinity Edge. Either you're going Essence Reaver into Mythic, or you're going Mythic into Infinity Edge, probably. You could go Reaver into Infinity Edge again, but I think you're just being way too greedy not getting a Mythic until third item. But maybe on some champs, maybe that's what you do. Maybe it's Essence first, Infinity Edge, and then third item is Kraken, or something like that, or Gale Force, or whatever. I don't know. But this is going to be a lot stronger of an option on many champs out there. Okay, and that's going to be it. They are buffing up Kim Drake a little bit, like 1% here and there. It's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. You're still going to prioritize it the same you would, I think, any other dragon in most matchups. Okay, well, that's going to be it. So I like these changes. They are nerfing some of the most problematic champions. They are buffing ADCs that I think are a little bit underpowered right now. And, you know, they had a great description of what the problem is, which is ADCs don't come online, a lot of them, until 3 or 4 items. So now they're giving them a chance to come online a little bit at 2 items. That might be too OP. You might have to nerf, you know, some of the scaling on some of these items so they're not too over the top. But be sure to check out my ADC video. I'll go over what I think the strongest champions are. But in my mind, it's stuff that can abuse Infinity Edge, second items. So those are your caster champs that, you know, just scale really well with crit. So your Jhin, your Samira, your Zayas. I'll give you the preview. I think those are going to be some of the top champions. Stuff that, you know, is not going to miss the attack speed and is going to really love the extra burst early on. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you next time.